Hello, viewers. Welcome to Impact on Clevenard TV in Diaspora. My name is AJ Ob. I'm your host for this engagement. Clevenard TV in Diaspora is an internet online TV service created to bring Africans home and abroad together to celebrate and appreciate their achievements. Today, we are going to have a very critical discussion on leadership, and I'm having an expert in the house, a power block, by name Dr. Ken Moka, Dr. Ken G. Moka. But before I go there, before I bring him on board, I would like to encourage our viewers to take out their time to go to www.clevenard.com and sign up to have a full access to our program. So once again, welcome to our program. This is Clevenard TV, and we have a critical issue on board today. Today we'll be talking about leadership from a perspective that is very important. And we have a guest on board today by name, Apostle Dr. Ken G. Moka. Apostle Dr. Ken G. Moka is a pioneer, apostle of Fountain of Hope Global Ministries. He's the president of Dr. Ken G. Moka Foundation and a professor at Kingdom Excellence Leadership Institute, Kelly, and also the president of Pan-African Business Chamber. Dr. Moka, you're welcome to the program. We have a vital subject this morning. As you can see, as you know, as an expert in the field, you can concur with me that leadership is one subject that has dominated platforms of discussion and debate, just like we are here today, due to the outcome of leadership in recent times. And this morning we'll be looking at how to deconstruct the myths and the misconceptions of leadership, and also the outcome of false leadership in our society. So I'm going to be posing some questions to you this morning, and I believe you have the answers by the grace of God. You'll be actually taking our audience to the extreme in bringing up for the vital principles we expect to hear from you in view of this very subject. So before we delve into this subject proper, Dr. Moka, I would like you to introduce yourself in your own terms. Who is Dr. Ken G. Moka?
Okay, thank you very much, Professor, for having me on this great platform. And also, good day to the viewers also. For watching. I hope and I believe this will be a blessing unto everybody. In a simple way, I'm Ken Moka, and known as a doctor also, and the chairman of Pan-African Business Chamber in South Africa, and Ken G. Moka Foundation worldwide, but primarily focused on Africa, but we are open to the world. And also got a university that we run on terms of leadership also, in connection with the United Nations also. This is a brief of who I am, and I'm Fountain of Hope Global Ministry also, and the ministry called to bring hope and encouragement that can never be erased, with the spirit of gladness and simplicity of heart. Basically, this is who we are, and grassroots-minded people. Yeah, thank you once again for having me on board.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ken, and once again, welcome to the program. I'm glad to hear from you, and I'm so impressed to know that you are a man of many colors, and you'll be able to analyze this issue and bring up forth the vital points that we are expecting to see and hear from you this morning. So going back to our subject, myths and misconceptions of leadership. There is this false notion which suggests that to be a leader is to be the boss of others. You know, the mentality that if I am a leader, I'm a boss and other people are subjects. You see, this notion is playing out in our society. You can attest to the fact that that is what it is. But in the light of this subject, I want to know, what's your take on this erroneous notion on leadership? Can you give us an idea of what leadership is about? in your own words.
Okay, and thanks once again. I think basically when we want to look into leadership, we need to understand based on the context of where we are coming from, because we have what we call a leadership in on the spiritual terms. We have leadership in business, and we have leadership in terms of politics. So basically, your field determines your clarity on leadership. But the simple word we can use in terms of leaders basically is that we can say to be a good leader must be a good follower, first of all. You cannot lead when you have not followed. And when we look into the world in terms of to be a boss, I believe that is a wrong notion in terms of if it's on the spiritual angle. It's very wrong to assume that you are a boss because it's a privilege to lead, because in true sense of leadership is like a servanthood. Now when we look into the aspect of leadership is we're talking about somebody who will be able to create or make an impact in the life of people. When you boss people, I don't think you'll be able to make an impact. And when we talk about when you begin to boss in people, I don't think you'll be able to make in some decisions that we outlong you if you are not there as a leader. Basically, again, leadership is about making a sound decision even in a difficult time, because a leader must be a true visionary. It must be somebody who can see even when others are still looking. I think those are the basic of it, because we're dealing on the critical aspect of it. So you don't look the way others are looking. You must see when others are still looking. I think that defines more of who you are as a leader in terms of strengthening the people also, and then not being more on the weaknesses, but on the strength. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. That's an excellent response from you. We know that leadership is vast. It's one of the most powerful concepts on earth today, one of the most discussed, debated, and what have you. Also, that is also a notion, because we are looking at now the myths and misconceptions of leadership. There's also another erroneous notion or view that leaders are only elected. In your view, are leaders only elected, or anyone can be a leader? What's your view? Is it only elected leaders that are leaders?
No. Not only elected leaders are leaders. Anyone can be a leader, because keep in mind, leadership comes in different shapes. And I think recent research that was made, scientifically research that was made, that leadership on its own suggests that the leadership is 30% and 70% is learned. So you can, your leadership on its own, and it's not only elected people, basically. Yeah, it's not only.
Thank you. So what you're saying in that respect is that leaders are not only elected. You don't need to be elected to become a leader, because political leaders are not the only leaders there is. We have.
Prof, let me come in again. Let me expatiate. You see, there are people who are elected, they are not leaders. But okay, because you can't give what is not inside of knowing. Because there are a lot of people today that they've been elected into position like the mess Africa is facing today. Let's come into the context of Africa politically. Out of 100%, the score mark of today leaders in Africa in terms of politically, if I need to score them, I don't think they're up to 35% in terms of score mark, in terms of, because they are not leading. They are not leading the people in the continent, basically. You see, so people can be elected into position, doesn't make them or qualify them to be a leader. I love the word a great man once said. He used the word and said, people expect somebody who doesn't know anything to be in a position to guide them, which is not possible. You see, many of them, they don't know. Then how do you lead when you don't know where you are going? Then your followers, how would they follow? You know, it still comes to the terms again that leaders are not even the elected people only, because you can be elected and you are not a leader. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if I'm okay with it. When we go deeper into it now, like we use the word again, that true leaders are followers. You discover most of the people being elected into power, they're not followers. And if they are not followers, how can they lead? How can they lead? See, basically they are not. So that is why, like we said again, to be a true leader also, you must be one that is passionate about the people. You must be passionate about the people. Basically, you must be passionate about the people. Because if you don't have you don't know where you are going, the people it's gonna be a mess to them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That is a very good answer from you, because in this environment that we live, more especially in our own continent, Africa, people have the view that if you are a political leader, then that's the only leader, that's the only icon they can perceive as leaders. They overlook other arenas of leadership and leaders who function in those arenas, corporate arenas, religious arenas, and etc., academic arenas. They just look up to the political leaders as the only leader there is, and that has actually cost us a lot in this part of the world. Okay, in your own definition, simple term, who is a leader, and what does leaders do anyway?
I think basically all my terms is leader is somebody who is passionate about others, in terms of when we look in terms of inspiring others. A leader is someone who is, like I repeat again, is somebody who is a visionary. Basically, you see, and when we use the word in terms of the leader, we must know that a leader must have the burden of the people. Is somebody who live a sacrificial life, basically. Sacrifice both his time, sacrifice a lot of things. So we, for my own view, is a visionary. A leader must be a visionary. That is the basic thing. A visionary that implemented with an action, and that is just basically who a leader ought to be. Because there are people they bear the name leaders, or they assume they are leaders, but no vision, no direction. I think I don't classify them as leaders. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Before we go on break, I would like to pose another question to you before we actually go on break. Okay, I got what you said. Now, what do you think? What do you think about when you hear the word leaders? What comes to your mind?
Yeah, depending on the angle again, when people speak about leaders, like I repeat again, when we use into the word, I look into, like I said, a leader must be somebody who's vision driven, focused, someone who can see where he's going, even if he has not arrived there. Someone who is who believes in his dream, believes in the dream of others, who is a strategic and a critical thinker. I think basically those are people I classify as true leaders, because to be a leader, you don't think like others. You think out of the box. People will be looking at number two. You are in 50 already in the mind. So when you are a true leader, or a good leader, you don't think to the level of your followers. It's not by age, but the mind must be so broad.
Okay, thank you for that answer. What you're saying in effect is that to be a leader, you have to be committed, you have to serve committedly and sacrificially, understanding the risk involved. Because
and you must be trustworthy.
Thank you. And that is what leadership is about. And okay, that is very important. Looking at these issues, we know that there are a lot of assumptions on leadership out there. There's a lot of assumptions. We have a lot of assumptions, conclusions on leadership, ideas, notions, concepts. But one disturbing factor is that there are a lot of books written on leadership that actually not towing the path of effective leadership. Okay, that is towing the path that will actually make people see leadership as something that that is about position, taking a position, occupying a space. So people tend to see leadership as the space and not the responsibility that is attached to it. But from what you've said now, you've been able to deconstruct that notion. And by the time we come back after the break, we are going to look further into what we have. Remember, it's still on Clevenard TV. It's still on Clevenard TV. And our viewers out there, if you are not yet on Clevenard, have not signed up, take this opportunity to sign up on www.clevenard.com and be part of this discussion. Okay? So as we return, we'll be able to look at other areas of misconceptions of leadership and the impact of pseudo leadership in our society. Okay, let's go on break now.
In the 21st century's technological advancement, we all seek opportunities to move and network with the emerging space. Introducing Clevenard blog and event posting. Do you think you have some interesting materials, good content, articles, and stories? Then feel free to publish them on Clevenard blog and events page, just as team of our writers are doing presently. By blogging on Clevenard's blogs and events, you benefit from our reach and network. There are constant stream of people visiting our social platform, and we have figured out just how to distribute our contents. This means you can basically skip the line and get access to a big audience from day one. Furthermore, we can help you get in touch with important people for projects with possibilities of translating your content into other languages and republishing them on Clevenard. This helps preserve and protect your content from getting lost. What's more, you also get to be part of our team with access to our network and lots of exclusives, behind-the-scenes information. And of course, you get full credit for everything you do, which brings you popularity and make extra income. Sign up now on Clevenard.com and start blogging to your advantage. Please see the tutorial video on how to blog or post events on Clevenard blogs and events. For more information, contact info@clevenard.com +34 631 279811. Website www.clevenard.com. Clevenard, your blogs.
Okay, welcome viewers once again. Is Impact on Clevenard TV in Diaspora. My name is AJ Oba. I'm your host for this engagement. I will have on this platform a gentleman and a power blog, an expert in the field by name Ambassador Dr. Ken G. Moka. You are welcome back to the program. Okay, Dr. Ken, you are the man on the hot seat this morning, and I'm going to really push you to the extreme at this moment. Okay, we've been able to look at some issues revolving about misconceptions, the myths, this traditional belief about leadership, what leadership is. There is this notion, this traditional notion, which is unfounded ideas about leadership that is not even realistic. One of them, which is the notion of being a boss of others. And we've debunked that notion to say that leadership is not about being the boss of others. Rather, a leader is simply a servant. If you're a leader, you are a servant and you are committed to serve. You're committed to serving the people. That is it, because service is the only motivation for leadership. So you've been able to help us to deconstruct that notion and other misconceptions that we raised. Now, moving forward, considering the outcome of leadership in our society today, you think these outcomes were influenced by myths and misconceptions of leadership by those in positions of authority? Look around the society Now, if you look around our society, you can be able to see heightened political tension, inhuman acts of terrorism, impunity, corruption, and insecurity, and what have you. You think that the myths we're talking about and the misconceptions surrounding this subject leads to that outcome or has influenced that outcome?
The first thing we must look into again is that you can never give out what you don't have. And in terms of the misconception aspect of it, or the myth or things of it, you must understand that people see the crown, a seat, as a crown in terms of leadership, in terms of assuming, like we said again, that when you sit in a position, that makes you a leader. Position basically does not make you a leader, because, like we said again, there are people who can be in a seat. They are not leaders, but there are people that even the world doesn't know them, but they are leaders. Let's give an example into the struggle of the surviving of the freedom of South Africa, for example. Though the world praised somebody like Madiba, but in the actual sense, there are people who did more job than Madiba that the world doesn't know, even till today. The world doesn't know anything about them. The world didn't celebrate them, because of what the people assume that a leader is all about. We look into it in this dimension that in terms of maybe leaders must be anxious, or leaders must be vulnerable, leaders must lead by an example, and things like that. We still fall back into it to say, is it political? Is it spiritual? Or is it business-wide? I think that is where the question we answer it.
Okay, thank you. This is why you answered it politically. You answered it politically, is all right. I'm a bit disturbed when I look at the approach to leadership these days, more especially the materials on leadership. Because when you go to Google now and search the word leadership, you'll be amazed. Just a click will return about 500 million hits on the subject of leadership within a quarter of a second. Now, if you look at the amount of people that are on the increase who are actually going into the leadership position or position of leadership with that skill, let me put it that way, it worries us, because when you look around, you ask yourself, why do we have this situation? Why do we have this insecurity? Why do we have that? Why do we have this? Why do we have that? Why can't we see this? Then that goes back to tell us that some of the things out there, people are going after, the materials on this particular subject, they are actually obsolete now. There is need for review and research on materials that has to do with leadership, or what people are taught about leadership. Because what people are taught about leadership will go along with influencing their life. So by the example, statistics that I just showed us on Google is one of that examples. How will somebody be able to discern which one is the correct concept and precepts on leadership when you have millions of materials out there? If you go to Amazon, you see the same thing, nearly 30,000 subjects on leadership is there, and almost 100,000 subtitles on leadership, only on Amazon alone. Now, how do you, as somebody who is aspiring to become an influential, effective leader tomorrow, get hold of a material that will lead you into direction? From my personal research, I found out that most of these materials are dealing with one perspective, which is very, very dangerous, on how. Now, the aspect of where, when, why, and why not is not really touched. So which means we have a lot of work to do on leadership. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, I think in this angle, let's be very practical on the scenario of what is going on basically. Let me use Nigeria as a state, a case study now in terms of this. when you look into most of these in terms of leadership or leader in terms of a nation or politically, you discover even most of the followers are still the main problem. Basically, how do you assume that somebody who is not even a secondary school holder to lead intellectuals to be able in 21st century to be living in an analog life, whereby we are living in a digital world? Now, when you look into that now, people must understand the difference of the season and not being emotional. They must understand the season that we are. So, in terms of that now, we see now that some people, like we use the word that people can be elected, doesn't make them a leader. This is where the problem comes. Even some followers sometimes can be part of the problems also, because some are not, they don't care about humanity. They don't care about the nation. They don't care about what the neighbor goes through. They don't care what others go through. They don't care. All they care is self. And when one becomes so self-centered, that person cannot make an impact. So the self must die for a true leader to be born, not just born in terms of giving birth, but for a legacy that is proper being kept. You see, like I give an example now. We don't pray for anything negative or bad in terms of anybody, but how do you assume when somebody is not truly qualified in terms of medically or anything, but people want the person to be in power? Let's be honest with it. It's a problem of its own. It's a serious problem of its own. Tomorrow, the same people will be crying. Then what we say in terms of economically, somebody is not sound to know, but people doesn't know the difference. Or let's assume when somebody was 25, 30 years ago, it was vibrant. You can't compare it after 40, 50 years again. It doesn't work that way, because the season has passed, the season has changed. You see, now when the person is forced to come into leadership, for an example, now to become, in terms of when I use the word come into leadership of a nation, that nation will be in crisis. Now draw it back. A leader is somebody who must not be self-centered. It's somebody who must think more of the good of the people. That is why, like Western world till tomorrow, let's be honest with this thing. Look at what happened in UK, for an example. Now, I'm still praying the day that it will happen in Africa, whereby a head of a minister will just resign because maybe he assumed that the community or the nation doesn't accept what he's saying. Just for that reason alone, he decided to say, I'm resigning. That is leadership. That is leadership. It's not about somebody who wants to die in power. They are pushing some people that using a wheelchair on people, and they still call it leader. No. That is not leader anymore.
Thank you so much. That is just one of the greatest problems that we have in Africa. People have a sense of entitlement when it comes to leadership. They think that because I've been there, I have to be the leader. Because I did this and that in the past, then it's my turn. I must lead. And that's a very big problem for us here. Another one is the educational aspect of it. And when you talk about education, people think education is only when you are in school. That's one other dangerous notion in this part of the world. Education is something that happens on a daily, regular basis. It doesn't have to end because you are out of school. I think this is why we have the kind of leaders that we have today. Leaders who graduated from school maybe 20, 25 years ago, and their certificates are already obsolete because we live in a modern world. We are in the 21st century, for crying out loud. And they think they can use their expertise of 25 years ago to lead the young generation of today. That is practically impossible. You see, so it's going to become an analog leader, and at the end of the day, he won't be able to perform, just like you have said. Okay, in your own view, what do you consider as threats of a good leader?
Threat of a good leader is very simple: having people who are not honest with him, most especially followers. And if one of the threats again is try to be a praise for people to praise you is very dangerous. Like from my own view, if you are if you want to lead and lead properly, there are decisions you make sometimes. People might not like it, but it's for the good of the people. Like, let me use Madiba as a state cause now on this, whereby there was a time within the party of ANC and the then government with them, they were not coming to understanding in terms of what need to be done. He decided to make a decision on his own, that even they were trying to call him a sellout, but he knew the decision was the best decision. You see, from my own view, a good leader must not be selfish. I always say so. A good leader must not be selfish. He must be passionate. He must see into the people what the season is all about. I think that makes someone to be a good leader. He must perceive. He must perceive what the time is saying. You know, it's very, very important, because somebody might be good yesterday doesn't give him something to say is good today. Although good by definition can be presumed in different contexts of anyone. But on my own view, to be a good leader, think of the people first of all, more than yourself.
Okay, that's a very very precise answer, because in most cases, from what you've said now, it looks like in this part of the world, to be a leader, you must be popular. Okay, you must be popular. That's one of the notions. This popularity contest, instead of being the person of the people, now people's person, now you seek for popularity. That is to say, the qualities are not there. The right traits.
Yeah, sorry, Prof. If I may expand it, you see, self-awareness is very, very important. Like what we are saying, credibility is very important, and it must be somebody deeply focused. You know, these things are very, very critical. You know, when we're talking about a good leader, you know, it must be, like I said again, the most is self-awareness. What's the time saying? What is the season saying? You know, it's very, very critical, and it must be ethical. You know, it must be ethical. It's very, very important. And I don't want to mention a particular name. Like some people were advocating for certain one to be a leader. I was laughing because I look into the communication skill of that person. It will cause the country into a civil war or into a war within 2 days. You know, so we're looking into communication aspect, how depending on the position the person is or she is important. Communication aspect again matters a lot in terms of a good leader. And this 21st century, the person must be very, very innovative. It must be very, very innovative. You know, we use the word again, must be somebody critically, you know, a critical thinker, you know, strategically, you know, in terms of the century we are. Because 1960 is not 2000, it's not 2020. It's totally different.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, from your view, you made some points. I picked up two things. Number one, to be a leader in this modern age, you must be a critical thinker, which stands out for me. Another one is that you must have an effective communication skill, because that one also stands out for me, because a leader is one who must possess the ability to communicate effectively to the people, because people are asking questions. People are not really interested about your titles. They are not really interested about your position. There are problems every day out there that needs attention, okay? Calling out for attention. So they want a leader who can actually pay attention and also communicate effectively. I know, like what you said again, I picked up something that someone cannot say to be a leader or aspire to be a leader when your language, your body language is wrong. That's to say your communication is dangerous. Your communication can actually incite violence, you know, in the community or in the nation. But you're aspiring to become a leader. When you are not yet in that position, what if you are given that opportunity? What will we expect? I mean, everywhere we're being coached. So that's another thing. We need to be very careful who we elect into political position in our nation, to avert ethnic cleansing and bloodbath, as we have seen across Africa. That is very, very important. And at this point, we're going to go further in this subject. We still have some time. or I want us to go to a break at this moment. It's still Clevenard TV. So for our viewers out there, you can sign up and log in to be part of this program. Go to www.clevenard.com and sign up. This is Impact on Clevenard. I remain your host, AJ Oba. So let's go on break. As we return, we'll continue to dig and ask for questions and answers on this very all-important question. Thank you.
Clevenard in Diaspora Television is an internet online TV service. What sets us apart is a unique combination of hit African content, first and exclusive international free movies, series, musics, news, events, documentaries, tourism, teleshopping shows, youth TV programs, and live interviews. Clevenard Diaspora Television is available throughout sub-Saharan Africa and to the diaspora markets worldwide. Take your entertainment with you wherever you go. Watch on your smartphone, tablet, laptop, smart TV, depending on your device. Watch free movies with Clevenard Movies Television. Stop searching for free movies websites and watch Clevenard Movies Television. Watch your favorite African shows anywhere at any time. Don't forget to check out our top 5 TV channels created to get you informed. TV1, Clevenard in Diaspora Television. TV2, Clevenard Youth Television. TV3, Clevenard Movies Television. TV4, Clevenard Teleshopping Television. TV5, Clevenard Tourism Television. To start watching, sign up at www.clevenard.com and follow the easy steps. Once you're done, log into the Clevenard website or app on your device, click on any one of our 5 TV channels, and hit play. We will be very satisfied and happy to welcome you to our team as one of our new business partners. Contact info@clevenard.com +34 631 279811. Website www.clevenard.com.
Okay, welcome back. This is Clevenard TV and it's Impact with AJ. You're welcome back, viewers. We have on board this hour a very critical subject on leadership, myths and misconceptions of leadership and the outcome of false leadership, the negative outcome of false leadership in our society. And we have on board today a very established individual by name Ambassador Dr. K.G. Moka. K.G. Moka, for the interest of our viewers who are just joining us, is the president of Moka Foundation and also the president of Pan-African Business Chamber. So we are having him here today, and he has been helping us to deconstruct some of the notions people have, erroneous notions on leadership and the impact of negative impact of false leadership in our society. Okay, as we continue with this program, I would like to ask you, Dr. Ken, at this point, counting on your expertise in the field, counting on your expertise, your experience of so many years, do you think we have the right leaders to manage the affairs of our nation at this present time?
Yes, we have the right leaders. Like when we look into our definition of leadership, most especially, we'll be able to know that we have the right leaders. If only they understand the role of leadership on themselves. But on the general context of it, we have the right leaders because we look into what leaders is all about, what leadership is all about. But the problem we're facing and which need a resolution is people or the leaders understanding what is the role of leadership, that they will not vote into power in the context of political now. They not vote into power to go there and become the boss. They are voted into power or elected so that they can serve the interests of the people. You know, I use an example again in terms of Africa in general. We have few leaders in Africa. I believe there was a question you threw down initially. I just tried to sleep about the question. I wanted to go deep into it initially. Whereby we look into areas whereby we can speak about our forefathers of Africa, men who were not concerned or who were not so selfish, but they were interested of the mother Africa, for an example now. And somebody asked me a question, who is one of your greatest leader so far? And I said, it's my father. Because I learned a lot of things through him. Then he's my greatest leader. Now, how do we think about people like Kwame Nkrumah's them? How do we think about Thomas Sankara? How do we think about even Robert Mugabe? Let me go into Nigeria. How do we think of leaders, people like even Goodluck Jonathan? The first in history, what has never happened in terms of Africa leadership, in terms of a man sitting in power, has all authority, but decide to give it out. Things like that. Yes, there are good leaders, but they still remain on people who understand what the leadership is all about. That is not about them, it's about the people.
Okay, thank you. On your side, you have the view that we have the right leaders in the position of authority or in corridors of power in Africa. But are you trying to say that, are you of the opinion that those right leaders, or some of them are situational leaders in the sense that they came in because there were crises along the line, and those who have been in the business, who have been there doing their things as business as usual, when they feel that things are out of hand, they start looking for these few hands. They know that they have what it takes to lead, but they've not given them the opportunity to lead. For example, someone like Jonathan, you talked about, is a man who believe that he has leadership qualities. He was very humble in nature, and we saw what he did, and he gave her power. He gave her power. We saw the controversies around the election, but he decided to give her power for the sake of the people. And such kind of leaders have taken flight in Africa. It's not easy to point out such people in this modern world because people are power drunk. People who are elected into power are busy amassing power instead of empowering the people. And those who inherited thrones are busy, disadvantaging the people. They become a thorn in the flesh on the people they inherited, to lead. So in that regard, now, what do you think is the way forward when it comes to leadership in Africa?
I believe it's in two dimensions. Until Africa is free economically, then the rising of a true leader will emerge. Ceremonially, Africa is politically free, but not truly free. In the sense that most of the so-called leaders today in Africa pay more homage outside the continent than facing the crisis in Africa. You see, this is why I said Africa, we got good leaders, but most of them find themselves in a position that they don't know what to do. And I want to be honest with you on this platform to say, majority of our problem in Africa is we have bad journalists. Journalism in Africa, the media in Africa is our problem, is our enemy, is the enemy of Africa. In the sense that when we look into, because it's easy sometimes for us to look into the weakness of the leaders of Africa without looking the positive aspect of the leaders of Africa. When you look into what happened in the Western world most time on terms of the leadership space, you discover most of things going on in Africa is not up to 0.5%. But when you look into the media world in the Western world, the way they portray, the way they present it is totally different for Africa, whereby we assume it's a freedom of speech or freedom of this or not freedom of that. You see, so I believe our media is part of our problem. That is number one. If I always say it anytime, any moment, the way we present Africa that makes people look as if Africa is a thick forest that when you go in, you just die easily, because of the way we don't have true journalists specifically to say the way they portray what Africa is, In coming back to the question, let's look into the case study of Mugabe, great African man, late Robert Mugabe. Because you disagree with such things, you discover I stand on this platform to say it. Our AU is very weak. African Union is very weak. Until the rising of African Union, then Africa will rise. Let's give an example on true leadership. How can men of 70 years be casting a vision that they will run for the next 60-something years? It's impossible. It's impossible. What are they trying to do? They want to squam everything and keep the blame for even a child that is not yet born. Let me look into my age for example now. I use my age and plus it with 63 years to come. It does not make sense. It does not make sense. You'll be thinking of African development for 60-something years to come when you are today. What deprive you when the resources, then everything is there? You see, so these are, like I said again, the aspect of the bad people in terms of the carbons are the ones that we are facing the consequence today. And the people also, we should not be so emotional in appointing a leader, because when we are too emotional, sometimes we can have a wrong leader.
Okay, thank you. You have the view. I just want to pick up from where some of the points you made. You talked about the issue of age. You also talked about the issue of media. But on the issue of media, I just want to look at it this way. I believe that the wrong use of media, let me put it that way, is because really media is very effective. In this modern world, you can't do without the media. Practically, it's becoming practically impossible. So it is not really the media per se, but I believe that's what they're just trying to say. The wrong use of the media. The way media is used in this part of the world is actually against the people. So,
Professor,
which is not
media is media, journalism is journalism. That is what we're trying to say. Media, that obviously we're talking about the negative impact that is creating. That is the wrong aspect we're speaking about. It is wrong on the way the media is being used. We're not saying the media is bad on the media concept. There are positive things. Let positive things be multiplied. Let it be known. Let it be seen. You see. But when the negative aspect is more, then it's like no use of it. That's the point I'm trying to elaborate here.
Okay, thank you. Another important point you made, which I also want us to look at, is that of AU, African Union. You just said it now, and I'm also of the same opinion that, I don't know if there is anything. I just know that there is something called African Union, but I've not seen the impact of African Union. So it is saddening that we have something called African Union, but we don't really know what they are doing at this point when it comes to leadership, because I believe that African Union is made up of African leaders, that's the presidents and appointees to represent the nations. But then, with what is happening in Africa today, you can't just, in any normal senses, say we have something like African Union. It's very unfortunate. It's disturbing. So African Union cannot be said to be living up to their objectives. That is a fact. We have instances out there to give. Africans are fighting each other in African countries, and we have African Union who cannot even step in to say, no, that is not how it's supposed to be. There's a lot of things happening in Africa, which African Union is absolutely doing nothing about. So in my own view, I'm of the opinion that maybe it has become more political than what it's supposed to be. So the humanity aspect of African Union is no longer seen. And that's a topic for another day, okay? That's a subject for another day. Okay, another one is the emotional aspect. We are people of emotion. I mean, human being cannot separate that aspect, but using our emotion in the right area for the right cause. You know, in Africa, from what you've said, I picked up very important point. It's like people are faithful to the wrong cause because of emotions, wrong emotions, channeling their emotion to a wrong cause. Like, for example, trying to support a man of 80 years to become the president of a country. Not just the 80 years is a problem, but the person is not fit medically. So what do you expect from the person to deliver with the kind of job and task that are out there for any leader to undertake to run an effective nation? So I don't see that as a serious approach to leadership in this part of the world. We need to be sincere to ourselves. If we want to change things in Africa, I think we need to start doing our homework properly. It needs to start with us before we start blaming the leaders. What roles are we playing in the society? Are we confident enough to say, hey, we are appointed into power, you're not doing what you're supposed to do? So it's either you do what we want you to do in principle, or you give room for those who are able or capable of doing that. We need a changed society. We need to attend to humanity. There is humanity crisis everywhere, and they are not being attended. So that's a very critical issue. As we are about to round off on this subject, is still impact on Clevenard TV. And we have on board today Ambassador Dr. Ken G. Moka. Before we go, I want you to spell out what you think about leadership, about Africa, and what we need to do as Africans. What do you have to tell our viewers before we leave the stage? Because this is one issue that it seems we don't have the solution. We have the skills, but the people who have the skills are not empowered to use the skills. Those who don't have the skills are empowered, leading those who have the skills. So what do you think we need to do as a people in this continent? What's the way forward?
Okay, yeah, thank you. The first thing that we need to understand is the importance of self-discovery. I believe that the moment we discover ourselves, or when a leader discovers himself, true leadership commences. And most of the words of great men like Martin Luther King Jr. once said, if anyone has not come to the course whereby he felt that being silent is an abomination on what is right, then the person is living in the past. So on my own view, we must cultivate strongly, passionately, in terms of who need to be elected into the position of leadership, in terms of we should not be emotionally carried away on the wrong way of past glory, but we must look deeply into the 21st century that we are in. As people of Africa, let us not be a tools, most especially to poison or to cause chaos, even in our own homes. And we expect even the good of it to come out, which is not possible. Like we look into different parts of Africa that are so blessed naturally. God has so blessed those nations. But today, they are the worst nation on the planet Earth because set of group of people are sitting down and causing confusion by giving them peanuts to kill brothers and sisters on the detriment of their own. And I think the people need to disease out of it. And let us be focused and believe, if I am in authority today, I am sitting, what will I do? What you think of should be the kind of leader you must aspire to see in the position. Once again, every leader, I want to say, must be prepared for criticism. That is what strengthens the muscles. That is what inspired more. As long it is positive criticism, although not everybody will going to criticize you positively. There are people who see the truth, they will run away from the truth, but it needs to be accepted. And leaders should not only depend on people who appraise singers. Most time, there's a say that says that the enemy you know is even more better than the angel you think of. You don't know, but it can be your worst enemy, you know. And basically, to be a leader or be a follower, the self of human must be present in us. It must not disappear in us. I think that, first of all, is the beginning of all. I remain and stand again on the word of one of my greatest mentors, in terms of which is my father himself, because I studied and knew most things about him before I begin to read the word. And let's look deep into our homes, first of all, and begin to lead through our homes, even parents, before the government can be able. There are things I always say to the people, even though it's a law, break the law, you are permitted, as long morally you are right. Because the future of your child today is who you are 20 years to come. Then it is your duty to make sure the child is being corrected, not being abused, being corrected, even in discipline, for the good of the child. Because we live in a society whereby we look into, let's assume we are in South Africa, for example. The law in South Africa is totally different from the law in West Africa. And children in Southern Africa take advantage of the law. For some of the parents who are not deeply acquainted with some areas, you see. So the encouragement is discipline is not an abuse. Discipline your child for the good of the child for 20 years to come today.
Okay.
It is very important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ken Jimoka. It's been a pleasure having you on Clevenard TV. I'm very, very glad that you came. And I tell you, you've been able to buttress so many important principles on this very subject. And I would like to have you again subsequently on this platform. It's Impact on Clevenard. I remain AJ, your host. And at this point, we are going to draw the curtain for today. And but we are not closing entirely. Our studios will be open once again in the evening for another important discussion. But at this point, it is time to go. But before we go, I really want to appreciate our audience for the time being, and I also want to encourage them to endeavor to sign up on Clevenard TV and to be part and parcel of this program. This is Impact, and my name is AJ, and this is Clevenard TV. Okay, thank you, and for having us, and Dr. Ken, thank you once again for being in the studio today. We are really blessed for having you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for now, thank you, viewers. It's bye-bye from me. God bless you all. Bye.